The most remarkable part of the Osmond story in 2026 is not that Donny Osmond still performs under the neon lights of Las Vegas after more than 6 decades in entertainment. It is that the real legacy of the Osmond family now exists almost entirely outside the spotlight, hidden in a private Utah orchard, protected by 5 sons who spent their entire lives learning how to disappear on purpose. And once you understand how deliberate that disappearance was, you start looking back at the entire Osmond dynasty differently, because this was never an accident. It was strategy, quiet strategy, built over 48 years of marriage between Donny and Debbie Osmond. While most celebrity dynasties push the next generation toward cameras as quickly as possible, the Osmonds did the opposite. They raised 5 sons who learned how to survive fame by refusing to depend on it. And in an industry where public attention usually becomes inherited debt, that decision may have saved the family entirely. That is not accidental, especially when you understand what Donny Osmond himself lived through during the 1970s. At the height of Osmond mania, he was not simply famous. He was one of the most recognizable teen idols on the planet. Thousands of screaming fans, endless touring, television appearances, merchandise, reporters following every movement, a level of exposure that eventually consumed entire celebrity, families from that era. But the strange thing about surviving that kind of fame is that sometimes it teaches you exactly what you never want your children to experience. And in 2026, the evidence of that philosophy is sitting in the dirt behind Donny Osmond's house. 16 trees, each one planted for a grandchild, a living census, a private family record that grows quietly while the public sees only the performances, the residency lights, and the polished interviews. Every time another grandchild is born, another fruit tree goes into the Utah soil. Peach trees. Fruit trees' roots, physical reminders that the Osmond legacy would grow downward before it ever reached outward. That word matters here, roots, and Donny repeats it constantly when he talks about family, roots, stability, grounding. That word was not accidental. It was chosen by someone who spent more than 50 years understanding exactly what happens when fame removes people from ordinary life. If you have ever been on the receiving end of carefully rehearsed language from someone who already decided what mattered most to them long ago, you understand precisely what that phrasing conceals, because the orchard is not really about gardening. It is about control. Control over what becomes public. Control over what stays private. Control over how a family survives while carrying one of the most recognizable surnames in entertainment history. And in 2026, that control suddenly matters even more. Because with original Osmond family members, Wayne and Alan, entering the final chapter of public life, the structure of the dynasty itself has changed. Quietly, almost invisibly. Donny's 5 sons are no longer simply celebrity children standing behind a famous father. They have become the custodians of the entire family image moving forward, which sounds glamorous until you think about the pressure attached to it. The Osmond name is not just associated with music. It carries 60 years of expectations. Clean image, stability, faith, family, values, professionalism, longevity, an almost impossible public standard that survived eras that destroyed most entertainment, dynasties. And somehow these 5 brothers inherited all of that responsibility while simultaneously choosing lives that look almost aggressively ordinary. That contradiction is the story. Because the eldest son, Donny Clark Osmond Jr., understood something extremely early. Chasing his father's exact career path would always leave him standing inside another man's shadow. So instead of becoming another performer, he became something much more difficult to notice: the strategist. Born in 1979, Don Jr. stepped away from microphones and toward infrastructure, marketing, branding, digital strategy, the invisible systems that keep celebrity empires alive long after audiences stop paying attention. Today, he operates through Ozcom, helping manage branding and communication strategy connected to the Osmond legacy. And what makes that decision fascinating is how much psychological discipline it required. Because the temptation for celebrity children is usually visibility, recognition, validation, but Don Jr. chose leverage instead. He became the architect instead of the attraction. And when you look back at that choice now, it reframes the entire family dynamic. The oldest son did not spend his adult life trying to become another Donny Osmond. He spent it making sure the family name could survive the digital era without collapsing. Under it, that sequence is deliberate, especially in a world where one bad headline can permanently redefine an entire celebrity family. Overnight, then came Jeremy, and Jeremy's decision may have been even more radical. Because unlike celebrity children who rebel publicly, Jeremy Osmond rebelled quietly, which is much harder to recognize in real time. Born in 1981, Jeremy walked away from entertainment almost completely and entered physical therapy. He earned a doctorate, built a medical career, focused on rehabilitation, recovery, human movement, the kind of work that happens one patient at a time behind closed doors. No stage lights, no applause, no red carpets. And in 2026, Jeremy is watching his own son Dylan complete missionary service in Uruguay, which matters because it shows something deeper about the Osmond family structure. The third generation is not moving towards celebrity culture. They are moving towards service, stability, and private identity that lands entirely on its own, especially when you compare it against modern celebrity culture where entire childhoods become monetized online before children can even understand what public exposure means. Jeremy helps injured people regain physical strength while his son serves communities thousands of miles away from Hollywood. And the longer you sit with that contrast, the stranger the Osmond story becomes. Because this family had every opportunity to turn itself into another endless reality television machine, and they refused completely. While Don Jr. became the strategist and Jeremy became the healer, the middle brothers found a different balance between creativity and privacy. Brandon Osmond, born in 1985, kept the music alive, but only selectively, privately, almost domestically. He works in advertising and design in Provo, Utah, building brands instead of chasing chart positions. But music never disappeared from his life entirely. It simply moved inside the walls of his home. Private jam sessions with his 4 sons, family music instead of commercial music. And there is something psychologically fascinating about that distinction. Brandon did not reject creativity. He rejected performance culture, which in retrospect reads differently once you understand how intentionally the Osmond sons were raised away from the industry itself. Because Donny and Debbie never forced stage life onto their children. That matters a lot. Most celebrity dynasties collapse because children inherit fame before they develop identity. The public meets them before they meet themselves. But the Osmond sons entered adulthood first, career second, public visibility last, which may explain why Chris Osmond became the only brother willing to step partially into public view. Born in 1990, Chris exists in the most interesting position within the family because he understands both worlds simultaneously. In 2023, audiences recognized him from the reality series Claim to Fame, where celebrity relatives competed while hiding their famous connections. But even there, Chris controlled the exposure carefully. He did not lead with the Osmond name. He let curiosity build first. Again, strategy. And behind the scenes, Chris quietly built another career entirely through music and post-production work connected to Disney projects, which means one of Donny Osmond's sons spent years contributing creatively to one of the largest entertainment companies on Earth without aggressively using his family name as the primary selling point. Think about the restraint required for that, especially today, because modern celebrity culture rewards overexposure, constant posting, endless visibility, public intimacy performed for strangers online 24 hours a day. But Chris approached visibility almost surgically, showing enough for audiences to stay curious while protecting the actual center of his life. And in 2025, that center changed completely with the birth of his daughter. Rivy James, another tree entered the orchard, another branch of the family rooted itself further away from Hollywood roots again. That repetition matters because the Osmonds are essentially building an anti-Hollywood dynasty inside a Hollywood legacy family, and the youngest brother may explain that strategy better than anyone. Joshua Osmond was born in 1998, long after the peak chaos of Osmond mania. By the time he grew up, the family name carried prestige without carrying the same level of tabloid obsession, which gave him an entirely different relationship to fame itself. For Josh, the Osmond name felt more historical than immediate, and his adult decisions reflect that.